This is the Real Estate Power Play Podcast, getting you the information that you need to be a successful real estate investor. Hosted by Mark Monroe, Ronald Walker, Gabe Rodarte, and me, Marty Grizzanti. Combined, we've done thousands of real estate transactions. So get ready for real stories and true case studies on finding deals, growing portfolios, and making money. Welcome to the show.
All right, guys, welcome to Real Estate Power Play back this week. A couple of us investors. We got Mark, we got John, we got myself, Ronald Walker. We're going to talk about today really what it looks like to put the power in the play, right? We're going to talk about relationships, how to build them, how to find them, how to cultivate them to explode our real estate businesses, and who to focus on in there. So, gentlemen, how we doing?
Doing well. Doing very well, Ronnie. Thank you so much. How about you, John? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I got the unicorn with me.
Boom. There we go.
Listen, when things get tough, if you got access to a unicorn, I mean, that's half the battle right there. So pro tip number one, if you're taking notes.
I love it. Pro tip. You got to find the unicorns, right? And I think that segues right into us talking about relationships and building relationships, right? Like, who are those unicorn relationships and what do we do? So let's kick off, guys. I was just mentioning right before we jump on, like, I'm pretty sure the business doesn't get easier. I think there's this mentality that eventually we're going to cross this line and it's going to get easier. But it doesn't get easier, guys. We just get better, right? We get better. We rock it out. We get stronger and we deal with the problems that are coming up. There's always going to be problems. There's going to be situations that are hitting us, solutions we got to be solving. And I think one of the big things, especially the guys that are watching, dude, the more people you have on your team, whether they're internal or external, the more people you have to help you. So to kick us off, relationships. In your relationships, what do you think is the number one thing, what's the number one relationship to help you grow your business?
Who was that for? You cut out on us, Ronnie.
For you, Mark. For you.
Oh, what's the number? I'm sorry. Repeat that question one more time.
Yeah,
what's the number one thing?
In your relationships, what's the number one relationship to help you grow your business?
I would say it's a couple of different things, but I would really say fellow real estate investors, like such as yourself, such as John, such as Gabe, Marty, and many other people. I think just with a group of us in the community coming together and helping each other out with different strategies, different options, I would say that's probably my number one in just networking through that process and just finding out who, like, hey, I can call up Ronnie or send Ronnie a message. Hey, Ronnie, I got a question. What do you think about this? Or John, or even Gabe. I know, and I just know through my relationships building over the past like couple years, like I know who's the expert where I can go to and have a question on such and such a topic. So I think that's probably my relationships, and then vice versa, knowing what I can give in return to whoever I'm working with, JV or my relationship partner, what I can help them in return. I would say that's probably my number one. That's kind of what I feel where my number one is there. What are your thoughts on that? Can't hear you, Ronnie.
How do you, when you're building those relationships, you mentioned people are active, you mentioned other investors, unpack that, right? Like, what did you do to find those people?
Go
a little bit deeper.
Yeah, definitely. I would say going to networking events. I love going to these conferences, especially the high caliber ones, because you're going to meet people on a much high caliber level that, everybody specializes in a certain thing and they've been through it and they have the knowledge. I would say that. And then also in a lot of these groups, these Facebook social media groups, especially during the pandemic, everybody was sitting at home and just getting out there and just, networking, LinkedIn, but Facebook has been really good in different groups. And then joining masterminds. We joined a mastermind that you were running there, Ronnie, with Grant, joining the mastermind groups. And, that really brought me to another whole level of meeting high caliber people. And in that mastermind group, because of the fee to join those things, you're getting people that want to learn, that want to network, They're not just kind of throwing a couple $100. We threw a lot of money at this to get us to that next level. And I think mastermind groups are really, really good. Yeah,
because like when you go to a mastermind group, it's not necessarily just the people at the front of the room, even though you get to be in a small environment with them. You know that everybody in that room paid the same amount that you paid, right? So,
Correct.
if you join a mastermind group that's $25,000, you know that everybody sitting in that room with you paid $25,000, right? And so it's like, yo, I get to do this, right? Like I'm hanging out with this guy. Like I love
Exactly.
that, right? I love that, everybody here is a real player, even if they might not be doing as much as someone else, they're as committed to their success. So, Jono, man, I want to hear you tag team on top of this, right? Because you got some good. So he talked about the number one relationship being other investors to help bolster our business. What are some other different types of relationships that can help, support us in who we are and what we're trying to accomplish in our business? What are some of those other relationships we should be looking at? I know you're good at really pulling that out.
Yeah, I think for me, having and you said it, a support system or someone that's gonna just believe in you. The first thought that I go to is my wife. Having someone that I think the dog is gonna try to join us. Having a good dog, is probably key. Sorry, Katie, you're number two. But all kidding aside, having someone that just believes in you, because I don't know if you guys are like me, but there are times when I am very up from just an emotional high and things are going well and I'm excited, and then there's times where I'm just in the dumps, and having someone that's even killed in your world that can just kind of remind you, hey, it's fine, there's ups and downs, that's something that's very important for me. And Katie is an integral part of that role for us. But Mark touched on networking groups. Something that I think gets passed on a lot is people that are just natural promoters that there he is, that will speak highly of you out in the marketplace. If they're at a dinner party and someone brings up real estate investing and they say, you know what, you need to talk to Jono, you need to call this guy. So people that are unsolicited, that would just go out and promote you or your brand or your opportunities, I think it's really easy to overlook. And then I think the last thing I want to say is just professional relationships or allied relationships, whether they be a commercial banker, an attorney, a good CPA. It's critical to have those types of people. I think investors are huge, and so I won't kick that dead horse, but having other professionals that run in concert with our business is key.
So that's great. Hey, Ronnie, let me ask you, we're just talking before we went live, about, growing pains, if you will. And, what about yourself? What do you, for you to, no one can succeed by themselves. So
Right.
like, what are the three main components that you look at in characteristics when you're kind of building your relationships and working with people?
Yeah. So I think that's good because it's easy to think we're a one-man band, right? But what I found is when I'm building relationships, and I think, I like how you broke it down into three, is one, I'm looking for active players, right? People who are active in today and weren't just a winner back in high school, right? Like I want to see people who are winning today and that are active. Number two is I want that person to be an expert in what they're doing, right? I want them, they don't have to be the best in the industry, although I love the best in the industry. What I want is someone who is actively sharpening themselves to perform at a high level. That way I can ask them intelligent questions and I know I'm going to get someone who is wrestling and struggling and winning and has had victories in these areas. And then the third one that I think a lot of us think unconsciously But the third one is someone who's willing to help me, right? Someone who's not just in it for themselves 100%. I want someone that is like, yo, how can I help you? What are you looking for? What's going on? Here's what I'm doing. What are you doing? Right. And is exploring what I'm looking at. Also that I'm interested in them. Right. So that's really when I think of the characteristics of someone that I want to connect with, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for those three things because if those, like, you can work with a guy like that, right? Or a girl like that. Someone who is in the game, they're playing. There's so many people who talk, and there's people who are extremely ambitious but super lazy, right? You don't want to be around those people. You don't want to be that guy, right? You want to be around the people who are extremely ambitious, who are freaking working their tail off, and they're like, yo, let me come behind, let me help you, right? Let me be your flag carrier, just like you're my flag carrier. And let me show you, hey, I got your back. Let me help you make some money, right? Let's do that. So that's what I look for.
Yeah, let me ask you another question on that because you mentioned something there about somebody not wasting your time, their character. I was actually on the phone this morning with an experienced investor that you guys all know, and he was mentioning that he's kind of partnering up with somebody that is kind of like dragging him down a little bit. That's just scattered all over the place. Like, how do you weed that out, and at what point do you weed that person out?
Is that for me or is that for Jono?
I'm sorry. Let's ask John that one. Let me
Okay.
ask John that one. I apologize.
Man,
No, it's fine.
that's such a great question. Like when do you cut people off? When do you put distance between yourself and someone else, especially if they're a seasoned investor? The reality is there are some people that from a chemical perspective we just mesh with, and other people that we don't. But chemistry aside, um, man, I think that for me personally, if I feel like every time I'm around someone, or the majority of the time, that they're pulling me down and I'm not responsible enough with that relationship to pull them up, that's usually a telltale sign that I need to put a little bit of distance between myself and them. And I struggle with that because, depending on what your worldview is, I think that we're called to love our neighbor. But that said, that doesn't mean that you have to allow them to pull you down into the pit. So, Ronnie, what are your thoughts on that?
That dude, that's so good because I think what happens is, as you're straining, what happens is we tend to not want to cause friction, right? And I think you're like, if you're responsible enough, if you're pulling away and you're causing this friction, at some point it's going to snap, right? At some point, it's either they're going to come up, they're not going to come up. And being willing to go through that, I think, is important. And I think when you're building your network, right? And what we're not talking about, I want to create a little bit of what we're not talking about is your network necessarily to like have leads. I think your work network, right? People are going to help you win in the business, right? Because I'm not necessarily going to Mark for leads or John for leads. But what I'm really looking for from this person, I'm looking for advice. I'm looking for expertise. I'm looking for guidance. I'm looking for wisdom, instruction. I'm looking for strategies, counsel. Like these are the things I'm looking for when I'm building relationships in the business, right? As we start going to networking groups, going to these things. And as you start building with them, there's other people who won 8 years ago, right? And they're writing that win into the future, and they're not necessarily putting in the work, right? They're not necessarily flag carriers. I just watched a video that talked about flag carriers, so I apologize. They're not necessarily flag carriers for you. They expect you to be flag carriers for them. And I think that is a really tell sign when you're dealing with relationships that you got to pull away from is, do you find yourself being guilted by them because your dreams, because your goals, because what you want to do? Oh, don't worry about that. Like, well, it'll just happen this way. Don't worry about that. It'll just happen this way. And yet they prolong things. They go farther off. They tell you they're going to do something. It doesn't happen. Like these are all red flags that you're looking for where it's like, hey, do I believe in this person to follow their word? Or, hey, if I'm this person, when I'm developing, when I tell someone, like, am I going to do it? And if I don't do it, like, I need to make that up. And I need to make that up a while back. My dad told me a long time ago, he mentioned he had a guy rip him off for a whole bunch of money. And the guy reached out to him like 8 or 10 years later. I don't remember the exact details, but he reached out to him 8 or 10 years later. And my dad's like, look, man, I appreciate it. I appreciate you reaching out, but you ripped me off. I think it was like 180,000 or like a lot of money. And my dad's like, look, if you write me a $40,000 check, we are at the point where we can be even and we can just initiate our relationship again. But until then, I'm good. I'm done. Right. And the guy disappeared and he came back like a year later and he's like, look, I can't write you a $40,000 check, but I can write you a $20,000 check. I like the dude wrote my dad a check and my dad's like, all right, you have shown me that you're willing to jump in and really, pay me back for the wrong you did. And I think even though that's an extreme example, I think with our word, right, when we tell someone we don't and we fall through, it's not enough to just apologize and still not follow through. Like we want to, hey, I've got to demonstrate like I'm serious about this, right? It's not that we messed up or we didn't fall through or we didn't do this, but there's massive credibility for those who show up on time when they say they're going to. And if they can't, either there's a good reason or the next time they do everything in their power to make sure they show up the next time because something really happened. So I hope that kind of unpacks that a little bit.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head about relationships on time. Contractors are my pet peeves. They never if they show up on time, they got my business. But how often do they ever show up on time, especially when they're giving bids? But you're correct about that one.
That's good. That's good. Well, and let me see. Who else? Mark. Let me think about this. So, virtually, we live in the COVID world, right? It used to be I go down the street, I'd have coffee with somebody, we'd build a relationship, right? It used to be we'd spend a lot more time in person. Now, Zoom's a thing, freaking Facebook's a thing. The people we want to connect with are all over the world, right? Like they're
Yeah.
everywhere. So, how do you build relationships with people that are going to impact your business and you can impact theirs from freaking 1,000 miles away? I mean, you're in Florida, I'm in Michigan. How do you do that? How do you build them so far away? Because the people we need to connect with might not be in our backyard.
Yeah. Well, one of the ways, like when we do meetings, like through Zoom, that's one of the ways. But mainly, like if I'm taking down deals, it's just really, finding somebody that has good character, that is a hard worker, that you want to kind of partner up with, do a joint venture with. That's kind of what it is. I had this one guy, and I think I might have mentioned this last week, really quickly, or the week before, where this guy, he works at a dealership working like 60 hours a week, but then he's still working another 20 or 30 hours a week on the side, hustling and doing. I mean, we just closed in a deal, 11 doors, and he was out there just kicking his butt. We literally just closed on that thing yesterday, 11 doors. And this guy was out there calling tenants, letting them know, hey, your rent payments are due tomorrow. They're coming to us. Pick up the phone, meeting with inspectors. This guy is just, he's an animal, just working, and it's starting to pay off, and he's brought in more deals. So, making sure you can trust somebody you work with, and then, mentoring them and teaching them the process and what to do. Yeah, I have him. I got other people like in the Carolinas, Northern Florida, over in the Louisiana, Alabama area. You just build that relationship and kind of like, all right, who do you know? We had a problem on we have 3 properties that we just took down, and the GC that they brought to the table was just outrageously expensive. So we had to like struggle to try to find. So I'm like, all of us, let's just jump in there and let's just kind of find a good GC. We have friends and family, reach out to them. They know people in that area. That's kind of, and it's really critical. I mean, it can really make or break your deal. I had a deal where one time where I had a joint venture partner, and he took photos, but he didn't really tell me about the subflooring. I thought everything was good. no issues. I budgeted everything. And then when the buyers started walking through there, they're all talking about this subflooring issue. I'm like, what are you talking about? And it ended up costing me an extra $15,000 that I didn't budget because of the JV partner. Now it was the last time I've ever did it. I'm like, dude, how do you not know that? It's just, how about you? I know you do a lot of stuff, Ronnie, virtually. Like, how do you find and build relationships with those people when their property's like 1,000 miles away?
Yeah, it's I'm not necessarily the best at like the main guy for virtual relationships. I'm getting better at it. However, that being said, I think the way I like to think is like systems, right? So I like to think, okay, who are the types of people I want? Okay, what are the characteristics of them? What are the things I'm looking for? And then I answer, right? I don't just ask the question, I answer it. So I write it down so I know what I want, right? I think that's a big flaw is a lot of us will ask questions, we won't answer it, right? We're just like, oh, that's a good question, but we don't answer it, right? It's like, answer the freaking question. So then the next thing I ask, and I'm walking you down kind of my thought process is, okay, so how am I going to do this? How am I going to build it? How am I going to maintain it? How am I going to cultivate it? Right? So you break it up. Okay, so if I'm going to build it, what I'm going to do is, so for me, and these two things I pull directly. I think I learned this from The Millionaire Real Estate Investor, the book The Millionaire Real Estate Investor. Okay, I think is where he talks about this. He says, Gary K says, if you were in my situation, what would you recommend I do? Right? Like, you're asking for help, right? You're asking for advice from whoever you're going to, from your work network. Hey, and this is not necessarily someone you're mentoring. This is someone like you're looking to build a pure relationship with, right? This is what I got going on, blah, blah. What would you do? And then if it's good advice, do it. And then turn around and reach out to the guy and be like, yo, I did what you said. Here was the result. What do you think now? And then they're going to be like, dude, this guy actually listened to me. That's cool. Blah, blah, blah. And now all of a sudden you have a relationship with this guy because you asked for help. You said, this is where I'm at. And then what you do is you offer help, right? Hey, is there anything I can help you with? And a lot of times people will say no, but if you keep asking, eventually it'll pop up. And then the last thing I do when I'm building the relationship with them is, whether it's them or someone else, I start with the question, who do you know that fill in the blank, whatever you need, right? Who do you know? I do this on Facebook all the time. I did this to find an attorney just literally yesterday. Who do you know that does evictions in Kalamazoo County? Who do you know that paints exterior houses in Kent County? Who do you know that blank? And then what happens is, all of a sudden that person, and if you want to elevate it, be like, dude, who's the best dude you know that does blank? I'm trying to build my network of people, I'm trying to get the best people. Who do you know is the best in blank industry, right? Who do you know is the best over here? And if you can do those two things, if you can ask for advice, do the advice, and then share with them that you did it and ask for more, like, hey man, I did that. This was my result. Like, what do you think? And then you ask them, hey, who do you know? Either they will know somebody or they might be the person, right? And you're asking directly for you. So that's how I go about, even virtually, like Facebook, online with you guys. And then you might introduce me to another guy I've never met. It might be a phone call. I've got a buddy of mine, literally, I've never seen his face. Literally, we haven't even jumped on a Zoom call. I've talked to him on the phone for probably like 4 years now in El Paso. And we've done like 25 deals together, and we talk at least once a month, more than that if we've got deals. But like, he was just a referral. I called him up, and literally we talk all the time. Like, I've never even seen his face, and it's crazy because it's like, dude, that's awesome. So that's how I start the building process.
So Mark, through that same vein, let's say you're looking for capital investors. How does Mark Monroe go about finding someone specifically like that? Because that can be a unique relationship to try to establish. I think Ronnie made some really good points there. But in terms of raising capital, what's a nugget that you can give us for that?
I mean, raising capital actually technically should probably be its own topic. We'll do a podcast, or YouTube. But what I do is, raising capital, I actually don't go and ask. They come to me now, believe it or not. I just start there and I do a lot of networking. People start to see what I'm doing. Um, I nurture the relationship when I meet somebody that I know that can be a capital, like an investor. I never ask for capital. I know they could be an investor, and I just kind of build them into my funnel. I have in my CRM. I just have an app. I use Podio. I have an app that's just for investors, and that I know that want to be capital. And first of all, I see a lot of these people posting in these group looking for capital. You do have SEC regulations that you can't just solicit people for money. And a lot of people, these investors, don't know that. So if you're one of these people listening and you're out there soliciting, make sure you educate yourself on a 506C, because you're supposed to do the 3-touch rule if you're asking for capital. But anyways, what I do is I put them into my pipeline. I network with them on social media. I connect with them. So I'm friends. So they see what's going on. They watch us like on these type of videos. And then they actually, I just have an investor last month reach out to me, and I'm actually flying up to Massachusetts again on Thursday. I was just up there. This investor wants to do a development deal up in his area, and he's got a general contractor he likes working with, but he knows who I am, and we've been friends. He's followed me. He goes, "Hey, we have a good relationship. I don't like to mix business, but I know your character. I know what you can do. I want you to kind of oversee this development deal and have my GC kind of be involved." I'm like, "Well, I don't know anything about, I don't know anything about real estate development." I said to him. He goes, "I have faith in you. You can figure it out." That type of thing. But that's kind of what's happening now. He's coming to the table, bringing all this money to do the development deal, and I got to kind of oversee it. So that's kind of how I tend to just kind of network through the process and build in, go to different like dinner meetings, meetups, just talk to people and just start building a relationship. How about you, John? What's your process on that?
Well, so one thing that I wanted to just follow up with that, it sounds like that takes a lot of time. Would you agree with that?
It does, and it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a good 6 months to a year. And that's what I mean. I just nurture it and just kind of build it in there, and I actually treat them like friends. I don't look at them as a money man or an investor or a money woman, whoever it is. I really become friends with them. I look at it like that. And then, I never talk about like my deals and the numbers when you first meet them. That's a big no-no, in the SEC rules. And I just talk to them. Hey, I do real estate investing. What do you do? And then kind of just start that process. And then just over time, when I see him again, we start talking about different aspects of the raising. But it does take time. It doesn't happen overnight. Going to a lot of these network events, who the players are, and just start. I went to this one multifamily convention a couple years ago before COVID, and at this multifamily event, there are NFL football players there that want to invest in multifamily deals. There's a couple actors there that have big money there. So they're going to these networking events looking for people that they want to invest their deals in. And these were multifamily a conference. So it was a high caliber, but it was really, really good. But great question. But I do think we should do a separate topic just on raising capital, because I know, Ronnie does a lot of raising capital as well.
Yeah, that's really good. One thing that's helped me, and this is one of the things that I used to work into my training when training agents, but I think it applies here, is act like you've been there before. Sometimes I think, especially as new investors, we get in front of someone like a Mark Monroe or a Ronnie Walker or Gabe or Marty, and they talk about some of these deals like you've got a pretty substantial deal that you're going right now, and sometimes just in our excitement, oh my gosh, you're gonna make $17,000 at closing and get $9,400 a month, and we can almost give away our position a little bit. If you're excited or you're starstruck, maybe don't show that. Get excited and wet the carpet later when you're not in front of the guy. But I used to tell these agents, if somebody calls you and they want you to come and list their $1 million home, act like you list $1 million homes all the time. If a JV partner calls you and says, "Hey, I'd like to partner with you on this deal," act like you partner on deals all the time. Like, don't get don't get starstruck over big numbers.
There's
Because I think that can make people nervous.
yeah, well, it's funny. I was reading this book called it's called the Hagurku, I think. I'm completely butchering it, but it's samurai principles, all right, for battle. And he talks about don't celebrate too soon, always stay vigilant, because if you celebrate, you'll lose the victory, right? And I think that's exactly what it is it's like all of a sudden you're like, oh man, that's so awesome, blah blah. And what you're doing is you're like you said, you're giving away your cards rather than being like, dude, that's pretty cool. Like, what did that look like? Like, how did you come into that? That's super interesting. I heard blank. Was it similar or different? And now you're in the conversation rather than being on the outside, like you said, starstruck, right? And you're actually talking to them, dude. I think that's so good. I think that's so good. That is, I think, one of the biggest mistakes that I've made, right? Is being too excited. Like in my career, I come in and it's my first time doing something, and I'm not acting like, hey, how I need to be a millionaire, right? I'm acting like a guy with no money rather than demonstrating the behaviors of someone who's successful and then realizing, okay, that's the behavior I need to be like. Those are the things I need to do. That's the work ethic I need. That's the strategy I need. Let me act like that now before I actually get it. And then you will deserve being able to have that result, right? Because that behavior, like our habits, create the results, right? And so we need to have those habits today in order for those results to happen. So, dude, that's freaking awesome. I love that.
That's
That was really
good.
good.
That's good. So
I-
let's say you identify someone, Ronnie. Let's say you identify someone that you think could be a potential uh, money guy or investor, partner, mentor, wise counsel. Some of the things that you mentioned earlier. How does Ronnie Walker foster that relationship? Like you've met them. How do you go deep in that relationship?
Yeah. So, super good question, by the way. So, one, I want to touch base with them on a regular basis. So typically, people that we want to build relationships that are doing things, they're very busy. So what I don't do is I don't try to take up a lot of their time once. I try to connect with them regularly on short intervals. Okay. So if you call me, there's a book called it's Donald Trump's The Art of the Deal. This book right here. Um, he talks about how like Donald Trump, he like loves short phone calls, right? Like if they can be super efficient, boom, 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 knock it out. So one of the things I like to do is touch base with them regularly and be slightly vulnerable, right? Share, hey, this is where I'm at, this is what I'm doing. What would you recommend? Who do you know? Blank. And then if I think of anything or I can connect them, I do that. And that regularly is usually about once a month, right? On top of that, I shouldn't say always. I try my best to remember to give them a gift of some size. Send them something in the mail. There's a guy, capital investor that I did. We were talking about. I paid him back, right? I sent him his money. First time I used him, my old partner actually brought him in, and it's talking to him, blah blah blah, and we got talking about insurance and some other stuff, specifically personal insurance and infinite banking. And he's like, I'm not super familiar with that. I'm with 401k. I was like, all right, no problem. Hey, what's your address? Right? What's your home address? Because we had used his business for other stuff. Give it to me. He's like, hey, I'm gonna do this. So I bought him 2 books and I sent him 2 books on that topic. So that's the other thing is I try to give them a gift. I try to send them something that's like, yo, this guy actually not only does he talk to me and he talk a good game, but like he paid, even if it's $5, he did a tailored thing based on what we were talking about, and he gave it to me. He said he was, and he did it. So that's my next thing that I try to do. Um, and then from there, if things are going and I want to move into like a deeper relationship with this person, um, I share my goals and what I'm trying to accomplish, right? And there's an aspect of being vulnerable, but there's also an aspect of if you do it too early, a lot of guys will be like, hey, I want to come out, I want to create passive income, I want to do. There's an aspect of doing that too early that makes you seem like you just bought into the dream from a webinar, right? But as you start building a relationship with someone, you get connected, you're like, I have a question. If you don't mind, like, here's what my plan, here's what my goal is, my quarter goal. This is what I'm aiming at over the next year. Okay. So not 10 years down the road, right? Because I don't want to be the guy who's got these huge, massive things that doesn't do anything, right? I like to talk about what I've done and things I've accomplished. But hey, I'm aiming to hit blank in the next year. This is what I'm challenged with. 1, 2, 3. I'm struggling in this area, or this is where I'm going. This is the success I'm seeing. I'd love to set up a time to discuss this specifically. I just did this with Mark, right? Transitioning my business. I reached out to Mark. I said, hey, man, I need help with some asset protection, right? I'm addressing some things. I'm doing this. I'm changing things over. Can we set up a time to discuss this just so I kind of got an idea of what that looks like? Well, guess what? We got on the phone. We had a friggin' hour conversation, which is a long time, by the way. We have an hour conversation because I was vulnerable, right? I didn't just have this front of, oh, you're amazing. Hey, this is my goal. This is what I got going in the last. This is what led me here. Can we sit down and talk about this? And that's how I start maintaining, after I did the initial introduction, right, of reaching out, connecting, that's how I start maintaining them. And then what I look for, and this is a super long answer, so I apologize, but then what I look for is I want to try and make them make money. Like, this is my primary goal. I've told so many people this. Freaking do deals and help that other dude make money. Like, if you can make somebody else money, legit. I've had people come back to me that are like true believers in me because I helped you make 50 grand, right? Like, if I can help you make 20 grand or 50 grand, or I can help you do something, bro, you're going to be a fan of Ronnie forever, right? And even if you, dude, I have legit, and this is me being like over the top for Facebook and everything. I've been so upset that I've made other people more money than I made myself, like by helping them through their stuff, and go, oh my gosh, why, what the freaking heck, right? Like, this year I made all these people money and I made a fraction of that, right? I'm still doing stuff, but what that does is it builds credibility. And one of the guys, when you think about leadership, right? A lot of people think, oh, I'm at the head, people do stuff for me, all this stuff. Like, when you think about leadership, there's one data factor that causes you to be a great leader. One, do the other people around you make more money by being in a relationship with you? Like, if people are around you, do they make more money? Like, in this bit, like, is that how it happens? Do you develop them and succeed so that they're growing, that they're stronger in the business, that they're making more money? If not, you might just be a really great friend, but you might not be the great leader. So I try to do that. I mentioned keeping your word. Don't talk bad about anybody. These are just kind of basic things. Don't talk bad about anybody. Bring some expertise to the thing. Bring other people in the network. Be a connector. Those are other ways that I like to engage and do stuff. So really good question, though, man. I'm pumped.
Yeah, that was some nuggets. I would call power play moves. Both you guys in the last power play moves. Both you guys in the last, that one and John. About that was great stuff. I'll go around the table. Let's ask both of you guys this, and I'm sure we've all been there. How about, like, you've had a relationship and you kind of outgrew it, and you kind of outgrew that relationship, and you love that person or whatever you talk to, but then they're holding you back a little bit, or they're taking too much time. I'm sure all you guys have been through that process. How about you, John? Have you been through that? And how do you manage that?
Yeah, I think that it is possible to just love people, but not allow them to steal your time. So one specific example that comes to mind is, I can still be connected to someone. I can still be a resource to them, but I forget the name of it. Ronnie, help me out here. I think it's called leveling up your network. There's probably a better name for that, but the idea being you're constantly trying to upgrade your network. And that doesn't mean upgrade from the standpoint of leaving old relationships because they're not good enough for you, but you're constantly seeking out new and challenging relationships, right? And you can still be connected to someone. Let's say you have Frank and Frank's holding you back we'll say in business. Well, you can still have a relationship with Frank, but let's say Frank's an attorney. You can continue to go out and network with other attorneys and look for people that are going to challenge you to think a little bigger, to stretch a little bit farther. Having groups like this, like you guys challenge me to think bigger than where I'm at. Not that where I'm at is bad or dishonoring in some way, but we should if we want to truly grow at the rate that we do, we should strive to stretch a little bit, and that ought to be somewhat of an uncomfortable or dare I say painful process. So I think continually trying to network with new people, and sometimes through the process of networking with new people, you meet some folks that super emphasize Frank and how great Frank is, because these other people that you're networking with are complete jackwagons. And there are some jackwagons out there in these networking groups, but allow it to take time. And if, Mark, you mentioned it could be 6 months or a year, could be longer, right? I think of when I started in this business and how long it took me to land at Ronnie's doorstep, right? Sometimes it just takes a long time and we need to be okay with that. But if you're, I heard somebody say it this way, you want to be an all timer. Like you're all the time looking for people that can make you better and you can help make them better. Not that you're trying to force yourself on them, but you're looking for people that are in alignment, they're going places, and you're trying to connect and come from contribution, add value to their deal. And if you just focus on adding value in the marketplace coming from contribution, I mean, that's been the secret to where I've arrived at is just loving on other people and not expecting something in return, but the right people, they want to reciprocate and help you in your business.
That's
Yep.
dude,
Ronnie, how about you? How about
that's
you?
so good. That's so good because what you're talking about is you're talking about freaking relationship vampires, right? That's if we really want to get down to it. When we talk about outgrowing someone, we're talking about people who are relationship vampires. And John, I learned this from John a while back. You got to teach people how to treat you, right? And a lot of times when we start outgrowing relationships, what happens is we're still allowing them to be a relationship vampire. And so what that looks like is yes, we want to love on people. Yes, we want to do that. But what I found one of the best ways to approach that is looking at it from your side and be like, okay, I can't control them, but I can control me. What am I doing to enable this behavior? Right? Like I'm enabling this person to be this way, which probably means, I'm not saying 100%, but what probably means is you're unwilling to challenge them and deal with tension, right? This is something I learned as I've been coming out. I'm still learning. Tension is so difficult. Conflict is so difficult. And a lot of us want to resolve it and just, oh yeah, it's okay, it's okay. But when people are coming at you, right? When they're coming at you, the question is, and you're starting to surpass them, right? They start making excuses and they'll say things like, dude, you're working all the time. You're doing that. That's when you know you're doing something right, by the way. Blah, you're doing this, you're blah, blah, blah. And then you can turn around and be like, dude, like you've been there for like 3 years, bro. Like, what are you doing to get better? Like, we've talked about this 4 times. The last time I asked you to do something, you told me that dude doesn't answer his phone. I called him once and he answered. Like, what's going on, bro? Like, why are you there? And if you're willing to challenge it, be like, hey, man, when's the last time I didn't answer your call? Right? Especially if it's someone close. I did this like 3 months ago with a guy. Right? He's like, oh, I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to set up my systems. I'm trying to do blank. And he's like, man, you're here. And I'm like, dude, when's the last time I didn't answer your call? He's like, dude, you always answer my call. I was like, yeah, bro, if I'm available, or I'll call you back, right? I was like, dude, I'm getting the factor that when you talk to me is the only time you're actually, quote, working. You're not doing anything. Now, not many people can do that. And only I did, because you ask me the same questions over and over again and you don't implement. And so what you do is like, look, I'm here for you, but I need you to be here for you. Like, I need you to show up for yourself and like look yourself in the mirror and do that. And if we're willing to challenge people, one of two things will happen. They'll either rise up, right? Or they won't. And if you constantly do that and you teach people how to treat you, come back to me once you do that. I'll help you with the next step, right? And you'll put the monkey back on their back. You put the problem back on them. Then what happens is they'll either get it together after 1, 2, 3 times, because it usually takes about 3 or 4 times before they actually, sometimes they think, oh, they just got courage in the one moment, I'll come back. You got to do it like 3 or 4 times and go through the crap. But one of two things will happen. Either they'll rise up and you'll be like, dude, man, freaking awesome job. This is awesome. Or they will stop calling you, right? Like they'll stop doing it. Where I find the hard part in this conversation is when you need something from the guy who drops the ball all the time. That's really the hard part, because now you have to be you have to have finesse, right? You can't just get angry. Yo, what the freaking heck, bro? Blah, 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 right? They'll disappear on you. So it's like, dude, you gotta encourage them. You gotta challenge them. You gotta be like, dude, it's freaking awesome. Yeah, what do you need? How can I help you get this done? Hey, do you need that? I'll do all of that for you. Right? You need to remove the path to make it easy for them to work with you if you need something with them. A lot of times this happens when things fall out with somebody, right? When you're in something and a relationship falls out and things aren't working, or something crazy happens with them, right? Or they might be going through a relationship issue or a personal issue or whatever that may be. Well, now you've got to make it easy for them. And that's usually where I find it's a little bit harder. And then once you've gotten through whatever the problem you are, then you can revert to, okay, we're in a relationship. Let's reestablish these boundaries, so to say, right? Let's reestablish what this looks like. So I'd love to talk a little bit about, and if you have another question, or actually, before we go back, Mark, what about you, man? When you're dealing with leveling up, let's go to you before I transition.
Well, I was going to talk a little bit more like and reverse it, like instead of like the relationship when to let it go or outgrow the relationship, what about the opposite, where you know somebody that you want to get into that relationship with them because they're bringing you to another level? That's the opposite. Like a lot of people are afraid, like, oh my God, I want to call this guy, I want to reach out to this person, but he's
I got
like
the secret
sauce.
That's
I got
so
the secret
good.
sauce. I got the secret sauce. This is it. Right
Go
here.
for it. I want to hear all you guys.
That person, especially if they're well known, dude, that person is so busy. Everybody wants to know them, right? You know who's not being connected with all the time? The people that dude listens to. Everybody around them. You know who's not getting a phone call? My acquisition dude. You know who's not getting a phone call? My assistant. You know who's not getting a phone call? The 3 dudes I talked to on the phone. So if you can figure out who this dude's friends are, and then you're willing to build relationships with them over the next 6 months, and you're willing to play the long game, dude, get to know them, make their life easier, and get that dude to be like, yo, you need to meet so-and-so. This dude's a freaking baller. And guys, I'm telling you, if you will take that, all these people, if you will do that in your life, every time there's someone you're like, that person will explode my business, figure out all the people that are in their ears that nobody knows, connect with them. And then you don't have to be the front guy. You don't have to have a show, right? Connect with them, help them out, develop them, send them a gift. I guarantee the dude at the top is getting all the gifts. The assistant ain't getting jack, right? So the assistant gets a gift and like, yo, this dude's freaking cool. Blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? Oh my gosh. Hey, you know what, Mr. So-and-so, I set up a meeting on your calendar with so-and-so because I think they would be really good, right? Secret sauce. Like that's changed my life.
Bro, that's $1 million tip. right there. What you just said. If you're not doing that, ladies and gentlemen, rewind that and listen to that message again.
What about you, Mark? On your side, yeah, what if you wanted to build a relationship with those guys? I know you guys take a little bit different approach. What does that look like?
I nail it straight on. I'll just go and pick the phone up or reach out, or I just go right into it. Or like you said, I will find somebody else that's connected to them and kind of come in from a side angle, from the side. But I originally I'll try to reach out. I've done it before. I mean, come on, who's the godfather of wholesaling? Sean Terry.
Yep.
I've gone directly right to him. And I found something that I had a relationship, well, not relationship, something that we had in common that I'm like, I mentioned one time during one of his things, hey, Sean, we grew up together in high school. We played football. You're from the next town over. So because of that, we engaged and that kind of evolved into a relationship. And I know Sean is super busy and, he's got hundreds of people during his quest on there. And I just brought up something that we had in common and it kind of opened that relationship. That's usually what I do is I find something in common and go straight at it. But, picking up like, the book that you're saying, like Donald Trump, good luck trying to get to him on that one. But then, yes, I would follow that same approach. But usually that's what I look for. I look for something that we have in common.
I think that's awesome. John L., I got a question. We're getting ready. We're coming to the end of the hour. All right. So I want to do this quick, but I wanted to touch on this. People you should be connecting with as a real estate investor. Who should you connect with? Who are the people?
I think what comes to my mind is people that are going to help you find deals, people that are going to help you navigate deals, people that are going to help you sell deals, and people that are going to help you when the deal goes sideways. Title companies, attorneys, allied professionals, CPAs, right? I think sometimes we focus so hard, especially early on in the business, we put so much emphasis on finding deals that we neglect the other part of our power team. And then we get ourselves into a title snafu and we're like, holy crap, I need a real estate attorney. And now we're scrambling while we're under the gun,
Nice.
So build your power team.
Dude, I think that's awesome. What on your side, Mark, who would you say are the first people or the people you should be building relationships with?
God, constantly building relationships. It's never ending. I'm building relationships just like I'm trying to find deals. Just for me, it just comes natural. It's just over my years, my different businesses, I've always been building. I jumped on planes and gone out to Vegas on my own just for conferences, and sometimes they're not even my industry. Just going into other industries and just kind of build relationships. So for me, it just comes natural. I'm always constantly building relationships. Mainly what I focus on mainly is relationships to bring deals in. But what John was saying, yes, you definitely need the whole real estate. And that's great advice what he was doing. But that's kind of where my approach is looking at relationship. How about you, Ronnie? Same question.
Well, but Ronnie, before
Okay.
you jump in, I want to edify Mark just for a second and change my answer or add to my answer. If you are not great at networking, then you need to be connected with somebody like Mark Monroe. Like if you suck at that skill, go find somebody that's great at that and just stay connected to them and leverage that piece for them. So there's
Great
a
advice.
shameless plug for Mark Monroe.
Great advice, though. But you're correct. Not just me, but in general, you're great at networking. And Ronnie, everybody in our group is great at networking. But I do agree. That's a good tip. That if you're not good at networking, find somebody that is good at networking and just partner up with them. Good.
That's amazing. I think that when you're going in and you're building relationships, I'm constantly analyzing, and there's things that I fall through the cracks on and other stuff. But when I look at it, is okay, how strong is my support circle? Specifically, when I think of support, people that can help me get things done. People like attorneys. How strong is my contractors? how strong is, other investors, real estate agents, right? Like people who are going to support me doing deals. And then I'll look at, okay, if that's my support, and a lot of real estate agents will focus on like their service providers, right? Like who's the best mechanic, who's the best blank, who's the best X, And so I'll ask myself, okay, how's my service provider network? People who do specific services. Do I have any gaps? Is there certain ones? And write out a list. And actually, if you guys go to like real estate agent, like if you look at real estate agent stuff and look at like service provider like networks, like there's like sheets for real estate agents, like pull that to figure out, okay, these are all the different types of service providers, right? Like how well is that put together? And then the last one, which we've talked a lot about on other shows, guys, is your inner circle, right? These are your mentors. These are your close friends who want to see you win. These are people who are investors who are ahead of you that have an interest in you winning. Like these are your partners, right? This is who you're really connected to, right? That you're friends with, you're on group chats with, you're really connected. And so what I like to do is just separate it, right? Okay, these are the people that provide services to me. These are the people that support me in my business. And these are the people that are kind of my inner mentors, circle, peers, people I'm pouring into. And that's kind of how I would separate that out. So that's kind of what I would look like. We're coming to the end of the hour. One final tip around the table, top nugget from today, or any final thoughts you guys want to add. Mark, why don't you kick us off?
Just again, we just talked about it. It's just networking and building good relationships, and just treat these people as friends. Don't look at them as a business acquaintance. That's kind of how I look at it. I just treat everybody in business. All you guys, I look at as you guys as all my friends. And we just kind of, from there, we all network and we just all make money together and we all just grow together.
Jono?
Yeah. Gosh, Mark stole mine. I would say connect with people that are going to challenge you, not just people they're just going to directly love on you and be a yes man or yes woman, but someone that's going to force you to think a little bit bigger and stretch a little bit, even if it's uncomfortable, and even if that takes time.
So I think my final thing, I want to circle back to the beginning, is, man, find the people, like focus on people who are active, like who are the players, like cipher through, look for someone who is learning and growing and is an expert in what they do, even if they're not the end all be all. Find someone who knows what they're talking about so you can learn. And third, someone who's willing to help, right? They might not be willing to give you a whole bunch of time, but when you talk to them, they're willing to help, right? They're open. They're not like you call them and they're like, yo, what's happening? Hey, I'm busy. I can't talk right now. No, right? Someone who's willing to, when you have them, they're fully engaged in the moment. And I think if you can do that and you can add value as you guys are plugging away and building relationships, guys, really the sky's the limit in this game. It's hard. It doesn't get easier. But you do surround yourself with people that make it a lot more fun, that give you the resources to accomplish your goals, and you can really win. So, and you learn how to strategize and improve. So that's what we got. Guys, have a good day.
Thanks, you guys.
This has been another episode of Real Estate Power Play, guiding real estate entrepreneurs to a brighter future. If you liked what you heard, consider subscribing wherever you listen to your podcast, or follow us on YouTube at Real Estate Power Play.